We'll call the meeting to order. I've had one a call of regret. Councillor Boudreau just called me prior to me coming here. You all have an invitation to stand and move around as we do every meeting. The one thing, the next item is we have Gary Nickerson who passed away. Gary Nickerson was a very prominent member of communities. I mean, he was at our meetings before he retired. He didn't miss too many of our meetings. And I think it's only fitting to have a moment of silence for his passing. Thank you very much. We have an agenda. Has anybody have anything that they wanted to add? Seeing none, the agenda stands approved as presented. Conflict of interest, anybody who has conflict of interest can declare it now, or they can declare it when the item comes up if they feel at the time that they should have. So it doesn't have to be done now. Next item is we have a presentation. We have Roger and we have Allison with Société Touriste Bon Temps. And if you want to turn your mic on, you can turn both if you want. Okay. Okay, your mics are on. The floor is yours.
Well, good evening, everybody. For those who don't know me, I think I know everybody here except you.
I'm Chantal.
You're Chantal?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know. Okay, I'm Roger and Allison. So this evening we want to do a presentation on the Société Touristique Bon Temps. So we will begin with our history. A group of stakeholders representing the municipality of Argyle went to Les Îles de Madeleine in the fall of 2012. Upon their return, the Société Touristique Bon Temps was formed using the ideas of what we saw there, the best practices. So in January the following year, the society was formed, and we are a non-profit society, and we are registered with Registry of Nova Scotia. Okay.
And there was kind of an interim period there. So with the Congrès Mondial coming in 2024, it was decided to reform the society and focus on initiatives to prepare our tourism operators and organization for this big event, but also the future. And that reformation received a lot of positive support from Le Conseil de Développement Économique de la Nouvelle-Écosse, where I work, and also from the municipality of Argyle. And we're grateful for their ongoing support with our initiatives.
Our successes. Starlight designation. The Southwest Nova region received the UNESCO-supported Starlight Tourism Destination as a result of the initiative led by the Société Touristique Bon Temps d'Argyle. The Starlight Development Committee was formed as a subcommittee, and as a result of these initiative now stands alone as a committee with members from Argyle, Yarmouth, and Clare.
And another success we've had over the last 2 years, we've overseen the successful coordination and promotion of La Semaine Acadienne de Paramba, which is now an annual festival from August 8th to 15th that sees tourism operators, businesses, not-for-profits, community halls, artists, musicians, and more come together to organize various events and specials and stuff throughout that week.
We felt we need a strategic plan, so earlier this year, with funding that we received from ACOA and Acadian Affairs, we hired Trevor Murphy from Acadian Embassy to develop a 5-year strategic plan for La Société. This plan has identified priorities, opportunities, and challenges going forward. And there is our mission. As you can see, encourage and support development of cultural tourism projects and experiences within the municipality, and act as a connective tissue between the operators and the stakeholders to facilitate a wider range of products and experience. And this will help strengthen the cultural tourism in the municipality. Just what we learned there at Zila Matlin is that they work together, partners. I mean, they're kind of isolated. So they felt that the only way to survive is not to compete, although they are in competition, like two restaurants could be in competition, but they still work together. And we were amazed at how they succeed by doing that. And this is what we're trying to do here, and we've had some success doing that, getting some partnerships between, let's say, a restaurant and a venue. They can partner, and that has been some success recently on that.
So just to touch again on a few more details of La Semaine Acadienne. So we, in the first year that took place, there was 31 different partners to the festival that helped organize 47 different events and specials throughout the week. And our goal for the second year was to be bigger than that if we could, which we achieved. So we had 46 partners and 48 events and specials. So we're hoping that moving forward, it will continue to grow and expand and have more events and more fun in Argyle.
Our challenges. Sustainability is the first challenge. Right now, the Société Touristique Bon Temps d'Argyle depends on grants that we receive for marketing and product development initiatives. And we would like to take this time also to thank the municipality of the District of Argyle for their continuing support with the Grants to Organization program and the district community grants. Human resources. Right now, the Société Touristique Bon Temps d'Argyle is made up of volunteers as well as individuals who are currently employed within the tourism sector who volunteer their time with the society. Partnerships. If we are to become a sustainable force in the tourism sector for the Argyle region, we will require partnerships for financial and human resource requirements in the future.
So moving forward, these are maybe some upcoming things for Bon Temps. So in January, we're going to be hosting a stakeholder and networking information session, which hopefully some of you will attend. And we'll be presenting our 5-year strategic plan to the attendees, and we're going to have presentations from ACOA, YASTA, Tourism Nova Scotia, and the Congrès Mondial, and lots of networking opportunities for our tourism operators and anyone else who'd like to attend. And we're going to be hosting a roundtable discussion on future large-scale events for Argyle during that session as well.
Okay. Preparation for the Congrès Mondial Acadien 2024. We will be meeting with the Congrès Mondial Acadien this winter to set priorities for la Société Touristique and how we can complement their efforts within La Semaine Acadienne de Paramba. We want to support CMA. We're not going to duplicate. We just want to know, I guess, how we can fit in, how the community can fit in within the CMA 2024.
So with that, we're hoping that our Semaine Acadienne in 2024 will be bigger and better. With the anticipated number of visitors coming, we're hoping more of our partners in the region will step up to help participate in that Semaine. So yeah.
Okay.
On that.
And like I said earlier, we are now a group of volunteers. So looking ahead, we're looking to hire a summer student for 2024 with the increased volume of work that we require to coordinate all la semaine acadienne, la congrès. So we'll be applying for a grant with Canada Summer Jobs Program for summer students for the 2024 summer season. We will require a work location and payroll administration for this person. We cannot do it ourselves. We're not set up for this kind of administration. So we are asking the municipality of the District of Argyle for some assistance with this initiative.
And I guess now we open it up for questions and comments, if anyone has any for us.
Anybody have any questions? Councillor Surratt.
When the student that you're looking at, when would you start? Would be June, May, June,
The student,
for the student that you're looking to hire?
the
From what you,
student we hope to have for July and August,
July to 2 months.
2 months, yeah.
Yeah.
If we can get the grant, typically these Canada Summer Job Grants they're only good for 8 weeks. Most of the time, you can apply for 12, you'll get 8.
Yeah.
From past experience, that's what you'll get. If we will probably apply for 12.
Yeah.
And we'll likely get 8. If we get 10, all the better. So
So you'll need that assistance with that student for a place to have a little office. Would it matter if there would be, let's say there was room at the municipality, and I'm not saying there is, would this be a suitable place?
We would love that.
yeah,
Okay, does that have to be Publico? Why
No.
I'm saying Publico, I don't know, I just
Yeah,
thought, you don't know.
I think the village would be open to, if there needed to be a temporary desk at the village, they would be welcome to go
Yeah.
spend a day in Pumlico if they wanted.
Oh, I
but
get you.
but we're
Argyle, Tuscan is the central.
Yeah, it is.
we're hoping this would be his location. Yeah,
Thank you.
hopefully.
Thank you, Roger.
Councillor Bort.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. My question is, so what do you have exactly to offer for the CMA, like to fit in? You say you want to fit in, so what would you have to offer? Do you have any idea of what you'd be offering?
I guess it's a lot of the activities and events that we saw in the previous 2 years of La Semaine Acadienne. We're hoping to see some repeat of that. So we want to be on the same page with the SEMA to make sure that, okay, if we ask Boats Keg to do their oyster night with down oysters and Caesar and oysters like they've done the past 2 years, that's going to be in La Semaine brochure, and it's not going to conflict with the SEMA event. And make sure we're on the same page of not conflicting of what grows in our brochure and what's in theirs, and working together to help promote everything.
Yeah,
So-
and we're hoping that our brochure will be allowed to put it at the hubs there. There'll be a hub here in Tuscan, or information hub, and one in Yarmouth and one in Clare. So if the CMA permits us to have our stuff there, so a visitor that's going to come looking at this for the CMA will see our brochure as well. So if I'm going to use Boats Keg, because Boats Keg and Nolan are partnering for an event that night that fits in, we'll be able to promote that.
Okay, I understand. Yeah.
And not necessarily the CMA that's going to promote that, for
No.
instance, because they have
Their own.
their own program, which I'm not sure how extensive it is, but it may not have that kind of stuff in it, or will not. We know that.
So more or less, you could tag along to organizations that are organizing things, like just say like we've got a group from East and West Pamlico that are got together to organize stuff going on during the CMA the week. So
Right.
you guys could probably tag along, or if we
Well,
needed, or
We'd have to have that conversation with
Right.
that group and with
Yeah.
the CMA, because if
Yeah.
that's
or
a
any other group
CMA
that's
family
organizing.
reunion event, maybe that is in the CMA brochure and not
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
SMEN brochure.
No.
These are questions we plan on asking openly to the
Okay.
SAMA so that we're on the
Mhm.
same page with them.
Okay, thank you.
So your Semaine Acadienne is going to fall in the same time frame as Congrès.
Be
That's what
some similar dates, but not overlapping. Because
Not
our
overlapping.
SMEN is
Yeah,
the
exactly,
8th to the
but-
15th,
Okay.
which are
okay.
some dates of the SAMA, but not all. And we had received support from the SAMA that they would like to still see the SMEN happen next year. And for us who've had success with it 2 years, it would be kind of hard to pause for a year and pick up another year. So we want to keep moving forward.
Yep.
With that.
Councillor D'Entremont.
I guess since we were talking about office space for a summer student, I guess I might as well ask the question to our CEO if that's a possibility or something we can look into. I think he was thinking there.
I was thinking,
You're always thinking.
well, that's, it's, thank you for noticing. This is the smoke. Yeah, I mean, the answer is always yes to something like that. Like, it would really depend on how it would align with recreation type events and SAMA events. But like sponsorship of a like, it's not uncommon for municipalities to have sponsored positions of this nature. There is a lot of precedent, and I'm going to drop the name of Cyril Leblanc. He used to hire staff for a one and done event for the Festival International de Paramba, and we administered it on his behalf. We paid the salary, and we made arrangements because we have the corporate services to do so. We can't expect every nonprofit to do that, and we can do it well. So it's not uncommon. Actually, it's an easy thing for us to do, in case you're wondering. In terms of space, well, again, we've got it. It depends whether it works for everyone, right? But not say too loud, because the space will run out rather quickly. But yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Councillor Digdon.
Just more of a comment than a question. I'd just like to compliment you people on the work that you have been doing. And I don't think you definitely wouldn't want to take a year off, especially 2024, because that would be your year to push hard, I think, because you're going to have that many more people around, and hopefully that many more people returning, if nothing else, just to visit and, to come back and vacation in this area. So I think that's your year to shine, really.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And like you said, we feel that our Semaine Acadienne could be so much greater with the more visitors, because, people that are here for a few days, they want to be busy doing something, not just attend the big events.
Yeah.
They want to get close to the local folks, and that's where we'll be. Yeah. Okay.
So,
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Hold on. Yeah, go ahead.
no, just wondering if there was any more questions.
Oh, okay.
If there's no more questions.
Our
did you have-
contact information is
Okay,
there.
so-
You can see who the executive board is, and myself as president, Pierre as vice, Sally is treasurer, and Allison's secretary. So any questions or some in the future, please don't hesitate to contact one of us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Follow us
Thank
on
you for the-
Facebook if you don't already.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation, for sure. So,
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay. Okay.
Thank you for your time.
okay, we'll continue with the agenda. The next thing is recognizing Argyle. If any councillors have anything they want to bring up, now's the time. I have Deputy Warden. Oh. No,
No, go
Yeah.
ahead, please.
yours came on, and I must have pressed it as
That's
soon
all
as it
right.
came on.
That's all right.
Okay, we'll go to Glenn. Glenn was
Sure.
first, yeah?
Okay, this year is more to express our condolences to the family and friends of the late Terry Rowland, who died last week. Dr. Rowland was a well-known doctor who had many patients and helped out many people and families over the years throughout our areas. So just like to express our condolences to the Rowland family.
For sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Warden.
Okay. I just want to give a shout out to Patchwork Pals because they made a quilt that is called No Village. And I was invited to the unveiling because our warden couldn't make it, but then did make it afterwards. But I went and the quilt is so Patchwork Pals got together and people from each of the communities in our municipality quilted a block that represents each of our villages. And it's amazing. It blew my mind. Part of it is 3D. Like there's something for every community in our municipality. So it is right now. It is still at the Théâtre, and it's going to come here at some point. Yeah, and it will be there during the CMA, during the Congrès, so that people will be able to see it. But I just wanted to say, like, it was incredible work. I was invited, and I went to see a quilt, and I thought, oh, it'll be nice, but it was like, it blew my mind. It was beautiful. So good work for them. Excellent job. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing no others, thank you. Adoption of minutes. We have the minutes of the October 26th Executive Council meeting. So are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, the minutes stand approved as presented. My report, there's an attachment for my report. I don't know if anybody has any questions on it. Then we're committee reports. Does anybody have a committee they want to report on? Okay, the first one I have is Councillor Sonia. What's the first one there?
Thank you, Warden. I'd like to mention, we had a waste check meeting last week, and the 15-year-old policies is being put into effect as we speak. They also mentioned that the EPR will be coming into effect as well, and I think we're probably going to have a presentation in the future. I just want to tell people to be a little patient. I noticed today about maybe 50% of some of the blue bags were left behind because people had sorted their things a little wrong. And mea culpa, I was one of them. And I'm going to be patient as well. And all I had done wrong was put my Tim Horton cups in the bag, which I thought they were paper, but it's garbage. So it's an easy fix, and it's a learning curve. And I just asking people to be patient. I think it might frustrate some people for a bit, but it's going to get better, I'm sure. Thank you.
Before you did, I'm just going to ask a question. Did they mark on the bag what was wrong? Or did they just put a reject sticker and you didn't know why?
There was a reject sticker, and it kind of says what goes in one bag and what the other.
Okay.
They didn't say about the paper cups, but it's, if you go on the site, it's there. And again, it's my fault for not.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if they don't, they can reject, and if they don't know why they rejected them, they'll reject them again because they won't know what to take out or what to put
Yes,
back in.
and I think it'd be prudent of us to have that presentation to make sure that the public
Yes.
knows exactly what.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I have Councillor Bork.
Thank you. Just wanted to mention that I attended a police meeting in November the 7th. It was just before the conference. So Joint Police Advisory Board here on the list here. So we did go there. NSFM is participating into these police advisory boards. We had presentations from panels from, we had mayors, we had chief of police, and they were talking about each different things that they were doing, what kind of situation they were in, and what fitted best for them. It was, if it was the RCMP that went through the province, or the RCMP that went through the municipalities, or is it the town, what we call town cops, I guess. So it was pretty good presentations of all different mayors and police chiefs and CAOs, and we had, that was a very good meeting we had all afternoon. This NSFM had put out a survey, and they listened to what people were finding difficult. And of course, policing is one of our most expensive bills that we have, so that was something that was brought up in every survey. So there's, and anyway, we did get through on our emails a overview of the meeting that went on. So if you go look on your emails, it's there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor D'Entremont.
I'd like to report on the Yarmouth and Keating Shores Tourism Association, YADSTA. YADSTA and Yarmouth and the area had Music Week, which was November 2nd to 5th. Again, a big success. Shout out to Neil McKenzie and his team for, again, doing a great job. I heard a lot of positives from it. A lot of room nights sold in early November, which is, usually not a time that we sell room nights, but sure helps the economy, of course, with all the local eating establishments and the entertainment and everything. So it's a great event once again hosted in our local area. So thank you.
Yep. Deputy Warden.
Thank you. So Mariner Center, I just wanted to update that we're still, the 66% drawings will come out anytime now. We haven't received them yet. Sent out the update from Mark Brophy from the project lead just before this meeting, and there's an updated picture. And it's looking really, really good. We did have the chance at the NSFM. I had the chance to present to the people who were still there on the Friday morning about our project for NSFM for the Mariner Center expansion as a success story. So that was good because I think it was Councillor Surratt who said, nobody ever talks about Argyle, so it was nice to be able to share that success with them. Also, when I look, Argyle Recreation Commission, we had. I probably should have said this in celebrating Argyle, but we had our Yarmouth County Athletics Awards banquet. We did it very differently this time. It used to be in the gym at Paramba where all those teams would come, but we decided it was kind of time for an update. So we had awards here at the office after our ARC meeting, and we gave out an award for Athlete of the Year to Melissa Stone, Youth Athlete of the Year to Josette, I want to say Monique, Josette Muse, and I'm trying to think of the word.
Was it?
Umpire, official. I had it here because I know I would forget. Official of the Year, and that was awarded to Frank Laxton. So those were some awards that were given out that night. That was just last week that we did that. And when I look at doctor recruitment and retention, I'm going to add on to that because there's another committee that I'm on as well called CNOC, SCNOC, which is Community Navigator Oversight Committee. So they kind of go hand in hand, those two committees. So we got a report yesterday from Carrie Muse about kind of what's going on in the doctor recruitment world. And again, a lot of it is confidential, but it's unbelievable, the things that are happening. Like, we're really starting to see yardsticks move. It's still family medicine that we have our biggest deficits in, but we are making some inroads there. They're involving the residents and the new physicians in more things with the community. And by doing that, they're bringing more of their families and people that they know. And our community navigator is visiting. She is attending conferences in different provinces. And just to say all this to say, there's a lot of traction that's happening, and it's very positive. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Surratt.
Just a few things. where our REN meeting is going to be, I say REN, it's the LOC of the REN. It's going to be December the 5th, so I don't have not much to report on that. I just want to, but we have 4 meetings a year, so this December the 5th is the next one. What I wanted to say was the Mariner Center Authority. We had our meeting last night, and big shout out to our CAO, Alain, that is working on the finances with our finance director for the Mariner Center. Alain's getting things, helping her get things organized so we can have, I guess, positive reports or the right reports that we need. It's kind of, things were kind of mangled a bit. It's not something, anything was going wrong. It was just not proper the way it was being done. So we'll hopefully have reports that we can deliver to councils, because it's a big expense on our part, And the other thing they set up, we had our meeting last night. We've got finance, governance, policy. It's all set up. We had papers on the wall so you could put your name. I must say, she's a teacher, our new president, Linda Gallagher. I think she was a teacher, that's what I gathered. I'm telling you, she reminds me of Nicole. She's organized, everything is very well organized, I tell you that. Yes, I've noticed that. I've only my second meeting, and so things are going. Another item that they're doing is they're going to do a survey of what they're going to call where the Mariner Center is, and the new aquatic center, the Jumpstart program, whatever they're doing there. They're calling it a campus, is the word they've been using at their meeting, and they're going to do a survey of the plan for the whole lot. So they're partnering with the Mariner Center, the aquatic center, and they're paying 25%. The Mariner Center will be spending 75% of that. I think it's an $18,000 budget to see what else can we put on that place. Like, people come and watch hockey. What about maybe a Starbucks? So people, when they don't have a place to go, they'll go sit down there and stuff like that. Kind of what the campus could look like with what we've got there. So I thought there was a different approach, and maybe people would donate more money if they saw such a campus and have their name lit there above the Mariner Center. Instead of 100,000, maybe we'll do 500,000. Who knows? But anyhow, I'm sure the funding for the aquatic center, they're looking at that. But I thought it was interesting. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Donaldson.
Yeah, it's not on the list, but it's the waste park
Mm-hmm.
/ transfer station. Just update that I'm on the policy committee, and we're working to update all of our policies, and we had a meeting this morning, so that's ongoing work, and that's all I have to say on that.
Okay, thank you. So no other committees. So we'll go on to staffing report, which is a clerk's report, and that report is there every week, every meeting, regular meeting. It's an ongoing report. Are there any questions or anything? No questions. Department head report, it's the same. If there's any questions on that one. CAO Muse.
I just want to, I'm not going to speak so much to the report that's there now. I want to speak to the issue that most residents are are looking at right now, fairly considerably, is the waste rejection. So it was mentioned by Councillor Ted, and we are going to have a presentation in December. Gus Green from Waste Check will do the presentation, and we'll go through it. He also has frequently asked questions that will come through, and we'll be able to distribute that. Actually, we can distribute it at any time. I think that I want to speak to council and those that are watching as to why these things are happening. Why is there rejection? And the concern is the supplier. So it's the organization that's actually looking to deal with your recycling, and they're having a lot of contamination in their process. So I may have mentioned this to you before. I'll mention it one more time because it is certainly something that is important to Scotia Recycling, is that when you get one bag full of both, it gums up the system. And if you have two bags, even if it's not absolutely perfect, it's a heck of an improvement to what they're receiving right now. So I think some of the rejections are going to be really hardcore right now, and it's intentional. The thing is most of our residents are doing an excellent job. So I think that some might be a little surprised, and my garbage is going to be due this Wednesday, and I am 80% sure it's going to be rejected. So I think all of us who are doing our best are going to just learn a thing or two, because these things do change. But the one biggest problem is that it's the one bag for both. That's the biggest issue. So we're trying to move people away from just doing the one bag for both recycling paper and plastic. They are separate. We have had calls from residents, just so that you're aware. They're like, "Why did you change this?" So, and the answer is we didn't. It was always in place. It's just that it's perhaps something that with new people coming in, they may not have been aware, and there's all sorts of reasons why that might be the case. So this isn't new. It's just enforcing a lot of the existing. But what has changed is the stuff that comes through, and you know it if you're buying anything. There's all sorts of more questions about what plastic actually is and what is exactly fiber. So your point, Councillor, on Tim Hortons cups. Tim Hortons cups used to be recyclable, and now they're not. So how's somebody supposed to track all that stuff? So unfortunately, we have to learn the hard way. But if the residents do a really good job, it keeps the cost down. The concern, of course, is if they don't, is that the cost is going to go up. And that will have to be in some way absorbed by either our operations or the residents themselves. We have to be careful. We want to manage that cost as best we can. So that's all I really had to say about that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stritt?
Yes, if I may, Mr. Chair, going to our CAO, what he said, I feel I should say a few words. And the part of the waste check team, we went to the policy team. We went to the sorting in Kenville about 3 weeks ago, and so we went to the facility in Kenville, and for us they didn't tell us what place it was from, but they were doing blue bags, they were doing paper. So we went on where the conveyor belts go. You will not believe what we saw. In the paper, there was cans. We saw the butt of a gun, of a gun. That this doesn't happen very often. The people working there told us they had a deer in a blue bag, the head of a deer in a blue bag. Now that was once. I'm not saying that happens every day, but I'd like to know how many cans and plastic bottles we saw in those paper bags. And that causes a mess, because if your paper's going out into a big bin and you've got cans and everything going in there, I mean, it just stops production. They have to clean up. So they're going to turn the cost, like our CAO said. They could, if this keeps up, and our recycling and collection will go up. That's not a question. They'll pass it down. So I just want to mention it's quite an operation, but it's quite a mess. You should have seen plastic in the paper. I couldn't believe it. So anyhow, just want to add that in. Thank you.
CEO, did you want to?
And just to confirm, what I saw is exactly what I saw was that, and those that bring the deer for recycling probably missed the point. That is all. Sorry, I had to let you know.
Councillor Saulnier?
Thank you. I just got to add to that as well. I think that most people don't listen to this council meeting, so trying to educate them here does help, but it doesn't go far enough. I don't think we can. I think we have to keep pressing and pushing, trying to put more flyers out, more Facebook, and explain exactly what's going on. And we can't stop till, I don't think we'll ever have 100% here. We can't hope for that, but we can make it better. And so I think we can't let our guard down. We have to be, like I said, put more flyers out because people are not going to just go by what's going on at this table here. Thank you.
Deputy CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Just to that point, Councillor Saunier, is we've been working with WasteCheck, Modi, us, and the town to kind of work on an education campaign. So we've put a lot more effort in regards to putting some Facebook messages out, some social media. We've done some on the Claire Shopper and Lobster Bay and the Vanguard, and I think there was supposed to be an interview on CJLS. I haven't heard it, but there's planning, and we're still continuing that campaign. So there's been some extra efforts. No matter how much you're going to do, you'll never get everybody, but we've done I would say a better job than just on the regular day, I guess. So in the last 3 weeks, we've put out a lot of posts out in regards to this.
Okay, there's no more questions on that. Next one is building permit report. Any questions or comments? Okay, we'll move on. Item 11, 7-day notice for two articles here, and I'm going to pass this on to Chantal.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I just want to touch base on these two. So basically, the council procedural policy, the only changes that are being made are changes that we've already been following. They just haven't been put in the policy. So you guys passed this policy last year. And we decided to do the executive council meetings where the department heads come in at 5:45 or 6 and they do their report, not live streamed, and then it starts live streaming at 6:30. So I just wanted to make sure that that was in there so that we're following policy correctly. And I'll touch base on the community litter cleanup so that you don't have to turn my mic off and turn it back on. So that we decided to go with just doing, if you wish, to just go with doing it once per year because we have typically only been getting groups going in the spring and not in the fall. So we decided to just make it once per year, and we upped the limit to 125 kilometers per year. And groups can now clean up to 5 kilometers instead of 3 kilometers, so that if they want to have more money for that, then they can, and they can clean more, just because we've had less groups going. So we want to offer the groups that are going more of an incentive if they wish.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move on for decision and discussion. First reading, land use bylaw amendment for rezoning application at 400 Abbots Harbor Road. And there's an attachment, and we've already looked at this last meeting. This is for the first reading at this point. So are there, Councillor Digdon?
No, I was just gonna, so there's a recommended motion
Yeah.
for this evening here?
Yes.
Okay, and is that all of, there's 3 different things there, so is it all one motion though, or? It is? Okay, so I'd make the recommended motion then, to give first reading to consider approval of land use bylaw map amendment for the property located at 400 Ebbs Harbor Road, PID number 900-75474, Middle West Pubnico, to rezone from the marine industrial zone to the mixed use zone as indicated in the planner's report, and to proceed to a public hearing without a second meeting of Plan Advisory Committee unless substantial comments are received from the public, and authorize staff to schedule a public hearing for the application.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, carried. Next one is relief of taxes. And again, there's an attachment. And what it is, this was, the assessment was for shanty No, I figured. There were none. There you go. Yeah. The assessment was for a shanty only, no land on Deep Cove Island. The shanty was demolished by the landowner and the assessment has been made inactive. So I guess we can't charge taxes if there's nothing there to tax. So it's, there's $43 in interest, there's $464.92 taxes for a total of $508.24. So we need a motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. The Western Rent Pace Project sponsorship, and we'll go to our CAO.
Not having all the information that's required for this, I'd like to table this for a future meeting. There's just a couple pieces of information we need to confirm. It's a complicated application,
Okay.
And it's regional, so there's a lot of moving parts. I don't have the full information. I intended to bring this to you for a decision on whether or not you would sponsor a regional PACE program. I can't do that today, but what I'll do is once I get that information, I will prepare and complete the request for decision, and maybe we could have a quick Zoom meeting because the deadline to submit an application is the 28th of November.
So we can't wait. We can't wait till the next
No.
meeting has to go.
Yeah,
But
and
we need a motion to table it
correct.
up until before the 28th.
I would
sometime before the 28th.
Correct. I would suggest that we table it, and inside that motion, this is a recommendation, that we table it to a special meeting
So special.
prior to November 28th,
Right.
so that we can come to a decision. And I would encourage you to have a discussion amongst yourselves as opposed to like sending an email requests and doing that. I would prefer that it be done properly.
Right. Can someone make that motion? It's been moved 3 or 4 times. Can we get three seconders? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. Election 2024 voting procedure. And this goes to our CAO as well. No, it goes to, I thought it went, deputy CAO, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I provided you some information in regards to what has happened in the past around alternate voting, just to kind of give you a summary of what I've shared here with you. But as you know, the election is coming on October 19, 2024. And we need to make a decision here, what type of voting mechanism we're looking for. If we're looking for alternative method, which is like the e-voting or by phone or by computer. You guys have a policy now that lets you decide that, but you can also decide paper if you'd like. The last election, I'll just speak to the last election just a little bit. You had made a motion back in October of 2019 prior to COVID. And at that time, you made the motion to go strictly, to go with the alternative method, so use computers or e-voting, but also use paper ballots on voting day. But then COVID hit, and you guys had another meeting to make another motion to go strictly to the alternative method because it was safer, and that was a pretty wise choice for you guys to do. So that's kind of what happened last year. I was not here, but the feedback that I got from staff was that e-voting went quite well, the way they had it set up. They went into different communities in Wedgwood and Pimlico and different areas and set up, I'll say a polling station, but it was a place where people would go and get assistance in voting on an iPad, sort of like you have. And again, talking to staff that were part of it said that it went very well. We had around 68% of people casting their vote, which I think is fairly high, but I'm not used to municipal politics, more provincial, so, but that number is fairly high. But I will say that I looked at the previous one, 2016, which did a hybrid model, which would have been the paper and the e-voting, and it was up to 73%. So, but again, you got to realize 2020, we were in COVID and people were really fearful of getting out and all those pieces, right? So I think that would have probably impacted a lot of that. So anyhow, I put in 3 suggestions, options there for you to consider. And I leave that up to you guys to make that decision.
Councillor Sonia.
Thank you, Ward. I only have one question, and it might be directed to council, because when I campaigned at that time, there was only one person that came to me and said, my father-in-law, I think it was his father-in-law, will not vote unless it's paper. Doesn't matter what. I'm asking if you guys had similar complaint. I only had the one. One.
I'm not getting a conflict of interest. I'm not running next.
That would make you a better advisor.
That was the only one. I found it a shame that we couldn't accommodate him, but at the time we couldn't. That's what the laws was, and I'm wondering if we should consider that, having only 2 known complainers. It's not very significant, I guess. I'm not sure he will be either way. Yeah. Okay. Anyhow, that's all I have to say. And if it's that low, it's probably insignificant.
The other thing that if I may, Mr. The other thing that I didn't mention is that certainly now that we're all talking about accessibility and being inclusive, like e-voting is definitely the way to go. Our director of recreation was part of a committee for accessibility, as you know, she's leading that. And they they actually spoke about this for the election, and like you got to have e-voting if you want to make it accessible for people, right?
Okay. Councillor Surratt.
Yes, thank you, Deputy CEO, for the info. It was interesting to read. I would certainly feel that option 3 is where I would go, and I'll tell you why to everybody is that would be option 3 is the paper and the vote. The reason is you've only heard one, Councillor Sonia and Councillor Donaldson, but let me tell you that I heard a lot of comments at the Ultramar and in my district too, but the Ultramar was from a lot of people. They don't, a lot didn't vote because they couldn't get a paper ballot. They don't trust the e-vote. Some of it that caused some of that mess was because of that. If some of us remember during that CSAP vote and that for the school board, that'd be quite a mess. And people were found out that they had voted for the vote for the African Nova Scotian, and I know there's background to that, but I tell you what, a lot of people came and told me, they said they don't trust the e-voting because there's always a way that somebody somehow can get into that. And I know it's supposed to be all locked up, but some people told me, and I'll tell you, there was a lot that said, unless it's this paper, they're not going to vote. And there was more than one, let me tell you. So I certainly agree with that, where people are leery about this. Nobody can get into it, nobody can find out. And, I certainly do think that I kind of don't like it either. So the e-vote, of course, accessibility. And another point I'd like to make is I'd like to know how many people, seniors, that don't have computers. And I know some that don't even have cars, so they can't get to the Tuscan Deutschport or the Publico, where these places were set up. They were not set up in every little community. So a lot of seniors have trouble with voting because they don't have you can have the phones. I had some people with the phones calling, press this, press that. They got all fouled up and they hung up. Finally, they hung up. They couldn't get through. So I would think that paper ballot and the e-vote would be the way that what I'd be supporting.
If I may make a comment on one comment you made, and that's that during the school board voting, that people they knew that who had voted for the African Nova Scotian. The same thing would happen with a paper ballot. Because when you go with a paper ballot, there's a register, and they ask you which vote, and it checks off which ballots you took, right?
But see, what happened was that's all that was being said about how good this vote was, and nobody could get into it. And it really, the people out there, a lot said, so if it's so secure and everything,
Yeah.
what the heck happened? And I'm not saying
No,
you're
it's-
right,
it's
but
true.
believe me, a lot of people said, "Wow, this isn't fit." You know, they can get into that stuff, but I know what you're saying.
But they could have, even
the
if it
paper
had
also?
all been paper ballot, they could
could
have
still-
probably gotten the same information. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's all I wanted to add. I have Deputy Warden.
Thank you. I have just a couple of questions. I think it's impossible for us to go away from e-voting at this point. Like, we have to add that, it's my opinion, we have to have that as an option for sure. I think in 2019, when we were talking about this, we had added the paper ballot option for the reasons that you just said. The e-voting seemed to have pulled in more youth, people who were younger, who may not have voted before because it was easy, right? It was easy, it was quick. So we saw more youth. So to me, that's a piece that we can't let go of. I think when we had made that decision, it would have been nice if we had gone with that decision, we could have had some numbers to compare to. How many people actually voted paper, right? Because if we have 25 people voting paper, the other question I have is, what's the cost difference? Just e-voting and e-voting in paper, right? Like, will it be worth? So we didn't get the chance to do that. Maybe this is the opportunity to do that, so we can kind of collect some data and see if it's worthwhile, because we really don't know, right? That's just, so I would also support that option, because I agree, there are still some seniors who are very uncomfortable and they want to vote, right? They want to vote. So, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Donaldson.
Nothing. She mentioned pretty well everything I was going to say,
Okay.
ask or comment on.
Okay.
I'm good.
Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. I did not have, I don't know if I had any complaints the first time I ran, but I don't know if we had e-voting back then or not, to be
We've
truthful.
had it for
2016? Okay, so yeah. Yeah. So anyway, by what I'm hearing here this evening, I'm going to go with option 2. And the reason I'm going to go with option 2 is to have the paper ballot option on election day only instead of on all the advance polls. So I'm going to go with, I'd like to make a motion that council could choose to have a hybrid model, meaning e-voting during advance polls and have paper ballot option on election day only.
Second.
Moved and seconded. We have a CAO wanted to say something.
I just want to speak on the cost question. So now that we have a motion on the floor, maybe I'll speak to the motion. So anytime, the longer you have an advance poll, the more expensive it is. You see that in provincial elections. Oftentimes the advance is like now, it's like it's almost an election for a month. So that means you have to have personnel, staff support that. Whether you do paper or electronic voting, you're likely to require resources on the day of the election. So people require a deputy returning officer to say, okay, well, Glenn Digdon has voted, and off he comes off the list, right? So, and then that person, Mr. Digdon, can either vote paper or he can vote electronic. Either way, what happens is once he's voted, the electronic model shows that he has voted. Why is that important? Well, for those of you who are running, you now know that Glenn Digdon has voted. Not how he voted, that he voted. That's an important distinction. The e-voting is very much like the paper slip. You tear the vote section off the slip, and the vote is confidential, but the slip remains. So it's done electronically. And look, I respect that not everyone trusts that process. I respect it. So on the motion, I would say that if you're doing a paper only on the day of the election, you're not likely to incur considerable additional costs. And I will tell you that the only thing that you would look at is you would need ballots and you would need boxes, which we already own. If on every election day we have deputy returning officers working the poll, so whether they're helping people with e-voting or whether they're helping them with paper voting, it's the job. It's not a duplication. So I just want to make sure that you understand that. Now, there is additional cost in doing a paper and an electronic ballot. There is. But I don't know that you can avoid some of those costs if you're looking to serve those that require assistance, because you need the deputy returning officers in the poll to help people who don't have a computer, who don't know how to use a computer, who can't read. There's all sorts of reasons why people struggle with both paper and electronic. So you have to have that service regardless. So that I just want to make sure that you understand the biggest part of the election is going to be your e-voting cost. That's going to be the biggest part. And the other part is based on the motion is not considerably different than if you did an entirely electronic, because we would need those people there anyway. Okay?
And if,
Councillor Saunier.
go ahead, sorry. I'll get it after.
Okay, thank you. On the motion on the floor, option 2 says council could choose to have hybrid model, meaning e-voting during advanced polls. Would you have e-voting on election day? It doesn't say so in the.
It ought to say on advanced poll up to election day.
Okay.
So with an e-voting environment, advanced polls are typically opened 6 to 7 days before the election, and they run all the way through to election day. So you can still do e-voting on election day.
I just wanted to make sure, to Councillor Albright's point of the young people voting, and I had people voting at the very last minute.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No,
So,
all of those options, every option will be available on election day. E and paper, if this motion passes.
okay.
I'm going to go back to Councillor Digdon because I think I cut you off there.
It's been cut off before, sir. Thank you. That's all right. And that's what I was thinking also. And I know your e-voting goes on election day as well. And I feel as though if we do it this way, then next time around, and may not be any of us sitting here next time around, but at the same time, council at that time will have something to look back on and see what the numbers were e-voting compared to paper and stuff like that. And yep, thank you.
Councillor Strat.
I just wanted to add that, obviously we live in a good democracy. That's why we can vote, and we're so fortunate. But I think it's incumbent on our council to be sure that people have a choice when it comes election day, that everybody has a choice. And that's what I'm really pushing for. Everybody has a choice, and those, whether they're blind or they're handicapped or whatever, that they have a choice. And that's my point. Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions? Oh. No. Okay. You just I'll do it and then.
Thank you.
Then cut you off. Okay. So the motion is for option 2, which reads council could choose to have a hybrid model, meaning e-voting during advance poll, and have paper ballot option on election day only. There would be no paper ballots at the advance polls. Have a hybrid model, meaning e-voting during advance poll only.
Up to and including. So
Up to and including election day. So we're all clear on what we're voting on. So all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Carried. Yeah. But there's going to be some paper ballots on election day only. Okay. Okay, yes. Election. Municipal Capital Growth Program, selection of capital projects, and that's our CAO.
I'm going to try to keep this brief. You have attached, I'm not going to go over it, the Municipal Capital Growth Program PowerPoint presentation that was presented to staff. This is one of the many applications that we get throughout the year. You know, you got to apply for this, and this is how much time you have. This one was a surprise because we didn't actually know about this one. The province is giving 38 million, I believe, 32. Thank you, 32 million, which is 50% funding. So that means they're supporting $64 million worth of projects under this program. That's the entire province, so that can disappear with HRM if it could be one application, right? But the province is intended, his intention is to spread this as evenly as possible. We examined the eligibility criteria, and at the same time that this came out, we were in the process of developing a master capital plan, which is later on in the agenda, that speaks to the entire list of capital projects and how we're supposed to tackle this. What we want to do, and at the risk of, I won't say this again at the master capital plan, but our intention is to be more proactive, which is to say, anticipate the grants that are coming, line them up with your priorities, and then when the grant comes out, we're not guessing. We're going after the project that makes the most sense. This is an imperfect process because one of the two recommendations that I'm going to hand to you is a urgent repair of the East Pubnico water utility. Now, if it was not an urgent repair, it may not have made the list, but it is an urgent repair. So all your best laid plans don't always work. So I just want to say that very clearly, that since we are trying to be more planned and proactive around these projects, but two things are true. Council operates the priorities of the project. So if the project hasn't received any funding or hasn't been completed yet, then we can bring you the information, but the decision is yours as council to decide which priorities are more important. So what we did in this situation was we said, okay, we have this list. Here are the ones that are funded. Here are the ones that are left. And we had prioritized every capital project based on a number of different attributes. So, does it urgently have to be repaired? Does it create revenue? Does it protect the environment? Does it? There's like probably 14 questions we've asked, maybe less. And each of them are ranked. Okay. It is not a perfect process. So it's ranked by internal people. It's not ranked by council at this time, though it could be. And so I guess what we're saying is that we have a long list of projects, and then we have an opportunity for funding. And what the funders need is council's endorsement that what we're applying for is in their interest, not in staff's interest, in council's interest. So when we did our analysis and we looked at, okay, what does it pay for? What is it eligible for? We can't just pick any project because some projects don't fit the eligibility of that grant. So based on our assessment of the eligibility of the grant and based on an analysis of what we're doing and what we have in our projects, there are two projects that we are recommending that we apply for. And in order, it's the Tusket J.E. Hatfield expansion or treatment plant expansion. And then the number two is the East Pubnico phase 1 and 2 replacement. I want to describe very briefly the J.E. Hatfield project because it's split in 3 parts. And East Pubnico is split in 2 parts, much easier to understand. East Pubnico project is replace the bottom that's completely compromised and then replace the tank in that order. J.E. Hatfield is a housing development priority. And what we're saying there is something that we've talked about for a long time, the importance of extending the J.E. Hatfield Road to the end so that we can access lots for new development. But in order to do that, we need a road and we need to be able to extend the sewer. As we've informed you earlier in the year, we received at the very last moment, at March 31st last year, 450 something thousand. And this was another capital grant coming from the province. And what they said was, you can use 100% of this on a project. But it has to be this, and this in terms of eligibility. So we, again, in that instance, we identified things. It was rather easy to do because it was very specific. It either had to do with accessibility or sewer that allowed growth. So we had identified the J.E. Hatfield sewer extension as being funded entirely by that project. And then there's other things like the accessibility work we've done here, and other things that will be paid for by that fund. So I guess what I'm saying is we split out the sewer from the road. Typically, you would put a road and a sewer at the same time, right? But we split out the project so that we could allocate, because the road did not qualify for that funding, but the sewer did. So now what we're saying is this new funding, the road qualifies, because the road allows for growth. So it does qualify under this one, not the other one. You confused yet? Right? And so that's why we divvied up the project. And then there's one other aspect on the Tuscan project that we need to raise, and this was discussed at the last meeting, and the importance of we're going to run out of capacity. So we're going to extend sewers, but if we can't treat the wastewater, we have a problem. So the Tuscan project takes two of the three items that I just described. It takes the road and it takes the filtration. Together, they're about a $1.1 to $1.2 million project, maybe 1.3. The East Pubnico project in its full is about 1.5 million. That one's a lot easier to explain. So what we're saying is, because of the eligibility criteria of this project, the best fit in order to get funding is the Tuscan project. And number two is the East Pubnico, and we have to put that one in, even if it's the number two, because of the urgency of the project. We have, as you know, submitted a funding request to the province and one to ACOA about the East Pubnico project, but we still haven't had an answer. And so sometimes what happens is, when, especially the ask to the province, they've asked us to put in an application, but there wasn't a fund earmarked specifically for this. All of a sudden, there is one. So we can't not include that. So that's the logic that we're applying on this decision that we're recommending to you. That's the reason why it's in that order. And it doesn't mean that, it could mean that the province chooses the East Pubnico project over Tuscan. It could mean that. They could disagree with us. They could say, no, this one actually fits better. So both of them, we're going to do our best to make the application, but we want to do two applications for this. This is specifically for municipal government. This is capital for municipalities. So we're confident that one of those two ought to receive support. In the description, I do go through the financial ramifications, which I won't describe, but I will just say that council, in approving those projects, you have to understand that there is a proportion of this that you'll have to pay for. This isn't 100% dollars. These are 50-cent dollars. Now, the other thing you should know is that and this is also a factor in the recommendation, is that the money that we can use for the Tuscan one is gas tax eligible, but the East Pubnico project is not. So you can understand the complexity associated with these things. So I'm attempting to give you a description of the process. You will see I extracted information on the capital master list and identified the projects that are still not funded. And based on that list, we made that recommendation. So I'm happy to answer any questions on that. The recommendation is at the front of the RFD, which you've noticed now is when I'm doing it, when I do one, the recommendation's at the front. And then if you want more information, you can keep reading. So you'll see that at the front. And so the suggested motion is that we submit two applications, the two that I suggested to you in that order. And that motion supports our applications.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. I have Councillor Surratt.
On the, to the CAO, on the scoring, on the East Pubnico and the Tuscan, did you score anything about if it's households that it covers, if it's businesses or?
An excellent question, Councillor. The answer is no. We did not measure whether it was for residential or commercial. What we measured some benefits, but not that one.
Yeah.
I love the question because I've selected certain attributes that can be used. Council can choose to delete or add any attributes as long as it represents what you would like to see in a project. And you don't have to do that today, later on in the agenda. This is a moving target, it changes all the time. So the answer to your question is no. And I would invite council, if they wanted to do a separate conversation on this in the future, we could certainly arrange to have that for sure.
Thank you.
Councillor Sonia?
Well, thank you. Alain, you mentioned that HRM can swallow up a lot of these grants. Is that a true statement? Can we be cut short by other people's request?
Through the chair, yes, it is a true statement. It's a competitive process. So I mentioned HRM only because of the magnitude of its organization. It could be other organizations that outdo us. So what the province is committed to is to spread the wealth a little bit. So they're not going to take the one project that's the most important. They're going to see how they can arrange these priorities such that they can support a multitude of projects, knowing that there's way more demand than there is money right now. So it is competitive. I doubt that HRM would take the whole amount of money, but it is absolutely possible that we not succeed in our application because it's competitive.
Yeah, the reason I asked is because you mentioned HRM, and I mentioned this to our warden yesterday, I think it was, that we have in this here it says climate change, so building seawalls and stuff like that in the future. I know it's kind of off topic for now, but the question is, we have 450 kilometers of coastline. HRM has 400, but they're a huge outfit compared to us, a small. We still have more coastline than them. So I was kind of using that analogy. Can we be overshadowed even though we have more coastline at risk? And can we be outspent by other people because their request, because they got more people? And do you understand my question?
I do. So there's two things that are working for and against us in that situation. Number one is affordability. So we can only afford 50% of this project. So HRM's number on 50% is far greater. So their project is likely to be larger in magnitude, but not necessarily larger in importance. And so there's always, it's an interesting analogy you do on the coastline. Because it's true, the issue is as large in Southwest Nova as it is in HRM, but they may measure the magnitude of like the implications of it not happening. They may take that into account. Is it going to impact 5 people or 500 people? That I'm sure will be brought into account. And in certain, depending on what the project is, I can assure you that the one thing that has been very clear from the province on this and many other funding priorities is if it's supporting housing growth, they are very, very interested. And so that's why the Tusket one was the one. It is supporting precisely what they want us to do, which is to assist in new housing.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We have a motion on the floor. If there's no more questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. The next one is the East Pubnico confirmation of funding. And there's an attachment, and it says it's the CO as well.
Very quickly, we discussed this in camera, but we didn't make a motion in public. I'm recommending the council pass a motion confirming a funding commitment for the East Pubnico water tank refurbishment in support of the application for COA funding for 375 being 25% of the project. So rather straightforward decision, but I just want to say that the user of the facility has committed $100,000 towards the project officially. So it is something that they are looking to participate. It's a very important asset. Why am I asking you to do this now? Well, we've got some outstanding applications, and one of which you just approved that we should do. So, but this is more for a COA, but when you are applying, everything is a piece of a puzzle, right? So you're putting everything together. So I would recommend that you commit $250,000 towards the East Pubnico tank refurbishment, 100 being from the East Pubnico surplus. That's now actually your money. So we're likely to go to the East Pubnico Subcommittee and make sure that they understand what's going on, because they pass budgets, and this was not budgeted. Though I think it's appropriate for council to make a decision on this, because we are the shepherd of the money, but we will be bringing this to them for endorsement. The second amount is actually from your capital reserve, and it's $150,000. So I think we discussed part of this in camera. That's all I have to say, unless there are questions, and the motion is there for you to consider.
I'll make the motion.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, carried. Capital investment and master plan. CAO again.
This meeting has been sponsored by WasteCheck and Capital. And the letter R. So there are 3 attachments there, and again, I really struggle with how this ought to be presented to you, because I really don't want to lose you, and there's a lot of data. Okay, the recommendation would be for you to do 3 things. I'm going to start with the suggested motion, and maybe you can just interrupt me and say, get to the point. The council, there's 3 motions here. That one, that you approve the 5-year capital investment plan, which has been attached. I don't know how much detail you want me to get into, but you've seen this before. It can be a long discussion. So I'm looking to you to guide me there. And the second one is that you approve the November version of the capital master plan, which is prepared, and I will go over that one just to make sure you understand what we've done. And the third, which is not anywhere here for consideration, is for future use, to develop a capital prioritization policy and reserve policy. What do these things mean? It means that we should have policy that defines how we deal with this big long list of capital. And also we should have policy that defines to future councils how much money we should be setting aside each year to pay for this. Because it's very easy to say, wow, we won't do that this year. But it's important to invest in the future, and the policy would be a way to do that. Now, remember, policies can be changed, right? So it's not like you're going to do this and that's the end of it. But I just think that would be important for when council talks about budget, that they have that in mind when they make those decisions, because, lots of projects are coming. And if we decide to take on these projects, there are ramifications to that, including financial, also HR, depending on the project. So those are the 3 suggested motions. I realize there are 3 of them. I'll speak to the motion on the 5-year investment plan rather than go through each and every item. I will say that the 5-year investment plan was significantly influenced by the capital master plan. So I've said plan a lot, but there's all sorts of plans. So if you look at the agenda and you look at the item that is called ranking master sheet, I'll give you a moment to pull it up on your screen if you don't have it already. This is as good a list as we know today about the projects that you could be implicated in. So I didn't count them before the meeting. I probably should have, but there are a lot. And the yellow represents projects that have been approved or commenced. So obviously, if something is approved and it gets going, it gets going. So you can see the examples. Mariner Center expansion. Well, it's no sense backing out now. It's like we're at 40% in, right? So track and field, same thing. So you'll see some of these projects. Wedgeport Phase 2 septic is almost completed. And then there's a list there. Rural Internet Phase 2, that's just a payment to Bell. Final payment still hasn't been done. Sand filtration study, that's actually underway, and that's funded by the province. West Pubnico Red Cap, you're familiar with that project. We didn't get any bidders. That's why the funding has been approved, but it hasn't been completed. These are the examples. I won't go through all the yellow ones, but those are examples of projects that have funding approved and are either going to be commenced, have commenced, or are ready to be completed. So those are really hard to debate. The blue is project in progress or completed. Now, what you'll see is that, it's not in an exact order. You would think that, if you prioritize these projects, they should happen exactly the way that they were prioritized, but that's not actually what happens. What things that influence the the order include things like, do we need to do something before a period of time? How expensive is it? So maybe it isn't ranked very high compared to wastewater, but we need a new sign at exit 32 or exit 31, sorry, before SAMA 2024. So there's a deadline there. So, and it's not that expensive. So there's a tendency of some of those projects to kind of creep in. And those aren't deal breakers for us and should not be for you as council because they're usually small. They're not like, we're not saying, well, we're going to do a $5 million project before a $24,000 project just because we feel like it. No. Most projects in excess of $250,000, we seek funding to support. So if we don't have the funding, it can influence when it begins. So you might think it's important. We might rank it as important, but maybe we don't have the money yet. Okay, so then that herein lies the decision. Does council proceed without it or not? Right, and that's where we want, as staff, we want you to be in control of, like, are we going to do this, yes or no, or are we just going to wait for the funding? And that's a council decision. That's not a staff decision. So the rest of the projects that are listed here that are not colored, that are like they're blank, are the ones that we're seeking to obtain funding or that we're working on. And the higher on the list, the more likely we're working on it. So we want to use this as a bit of a Bible around prioritization, which means you need to see this more than once a year. And the other thing I'd like to do with this list is I'd like to have council have the opportunity to take things off the list. No, we don't need this anymore. Or why didn't you consider this project? Why isn't that on the list? So what I'd like to do is, now that we've done all the work to kind of create this list as staff, I'd like to see council either amend, delay, or approve a list of this nature, but then understand these are your projects now. So they're up to you to delete, and new ones are up to you to add, not up to us anymore. And so I think we did a reasonable job in bringing that to your attention, but in doing so, we may have pulled away some of the governance and the decision-making power of this council, and we don't want to do that. The other reason why we want to do this list is that there's grants coming in. I've already mentioned this. We want to go after those grants, and we want to do it proactively. So if our top 5 are A, B, C, D, E, we go after those and we set them up so when the grants are there for them, we just go fire and forget. So now we're proactive. We're not reacting to an application. We're proactively going after the money based on our priorities. Does that make sense? I'll stop there, and I don't know where you want to head with this, whether you want to ask questions about how we rank them, or whether you think that the list is interesting, whether there are glaring omissions. I will only say one other thing before I stop, and there's a difference between a study and the work. So I think the sidewalk is your biggest example on this list. We have 4 studies likely going to be done all at once, and that will study the what we need to understand around the 4 areas that the AT plan identified as potential for new sidewalk construction. Paramba, Tuscot, Plymouth, and I'm not saying this in order, by the way. These are the 4. West Pubnico extension and Wedgeport extension. Now, at the time the AT plan was developed, things were a certain way. Like, I'm thinking churches were open, right? So if there was a desire to connect churches to another place, that may not be as relevant today as it was 2 years ago. And that's not to offend any community for closing churches. I'm just saying things change. So when we go and do these studies, they're going to study what the cost implications might be, et cetera, et cetera. Simultaneously, we're going to have an accessibility audit, which is underway and funded. They're going to tell us, mostly on sidewalks, which sidewalks are not meeting the 2030 inclusion legislation, meaning for disabled, those with physical disability. Like, are we set up to be inclusive around the sidewalks that we have constructed? So this is the rub, right? Do we build new, or do we make sure the old is well maintained and usable? And the answer is, well, it's a bit of both, right? That's the balance. So I just want to let you know, this one's always a hot topic, and a lot of communities would like to see sidewalks in their communities. And what we're saying is, let's figure out what we need for our existing at the same time as we're figuring out what new looks like, and then we bring it to you for a decision. And this is what we want to coordinate the work, and this is what this list is intending to do. It's very crude. It's done by a chartered accountant, not an engineer. So there are some limitations to the way that things get ranked. And at the end of the day, it is your ranking that's important, not ours. If you can override a ranking, this is your list. These are your projects. So I said one. That's it. So I'll stop there. And if there are any questions or comments or concerns or motions or whatever you want to do, I'll do my best to answer.
Yes, okay.
Councillor Johnson first.
Yeah, we used to have workshops / meetings to go over this kind of thing, because this is very lengthy. And I mean, we're trying to fit it into a very condensed amount of time. So I'd like to see like an afternoon meeting or something on that line so we could have a full discussion on some of this. But if council wants to approve these motions, I'm fine with that too. But some of us might want to talk about this more length than what we have time to do here tonight.
To that point, I just want to be very clear. If you're not prepared to make a motion, if you agree with what Councillor Donaldson has said, we would be happy to create that environment for you, and we will tell the province you will get our approval when it's ready. If that is the interest of all council, we can certainly defer a discussion to a subcommittee meeting or a meeting of a special meeting based on this. Mariner Center has like a building committee. Some organizations have actually a committee doing this. So if that's the will of council, that's
Just
happy
a suggestion.
No, we're
all.
happy to.
But
I'm saying happy.
I
to
didn't
accommodate
realize
that.
it was a timeline. Like, when does the province need this?
The province deadlines on all sorts of stuff this year is out of whack because they haven't been submitting things to us. So they can't set a deadline if they haven't given us information to do it. Typically, this is due at the end of September. I'm bringing this to you on the 23rd of November. I recognize that is not the deadline.
So this can be all changed around at a later date. So maybe we could pass the motions and get it in.
Right.
And then revisit it.
There's nothing that stops you from passing the capital investment plan. It does not obligate you to do any of those projects, actually. And most of the ones that are listed there are things you're already doing. So you could do that, and then you could table the rest of it for a discussion so that we could talk more seriously about the rest.
Because I remember all the posters on the wall and us doing a workshop.
What your priority was compared to what mine was and whatever. So.
You're absolutely correct. And
so I'll make a motion. Do you want all three in the same motion, or do you want them one at a time?
You can make the one you wish and table the rest if you wish. It's entirely up to you.
So you can make one motion if you want.
So what's the most important one, the first one?
The capital investment plan, to me, the policy can always wait. And the master capital plan is one that's constantly moving anyway. The capital is the one with the provincial deadline. So if you're going to make one, that would be the one I would suggest.
Move that council approve the 5-year capital investment plan for the fiscal year ending 2024 to 2029.
Seconder. Okay, it's moved and seconded. I have Councillor Surratt.
Yes, I was looking on the list, and I was kind of discouraged that I didn't see anything but a can of off for each residents in District 4, but I understand what's happened there. Mosquitoes, they're not on the high priority list in other parts of the municipality.
It's operation.
That's operation.
That would be the correct answer, yes.
But anyhow, really most of the time we had meetings, and I'm not discouraging what you said, Richard, about getting together and looking at the things, but most of the time, this is what I've noticed over the years, whenever we had a meeting about priorities and that, it always went to what staff came up with. I won't say 98% of the time it was what staff had for priority. So I'm not saying it was a waste of time, but I sometimes felt like that. I may as well be honest. But on the other side of the coin, staff knows what's going on. I mean, that's why it was whatever we decided to me was okay because it was really what was needed and no problem there. So, I guess for myself, I depend on staff to come up and have what's needed because I don't see the daily things, except for mosquitoes. Except for that, I see, but so I agree that whatever staff comes up with, unless there's some changes we need, I agree with voting on this plan for sure. Thank you.
Councillor Saunier.
Thank you, Warden. I had a question before the motion. So it has nothing to do with the motion that Councillor Richard.
Yeah, well, we should be discussing the motion.
So I will wait.
You
Yeah.
will wait? Okay. Councillor D'Autremont.
On Councillor Surrette's point, I think, usually, I think in my experience, when staff is looking at projects, they're, looking at all the projects, and then, we're always trying to leverage our money with wherever the funds are coming from, and oftentimes that's what drives the projects, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you need money to pay for these projects, and wherever the stream is kind of leading us, money-wise, it's usually, and it might not be the number one priority, or but if you got money and somebody's offering to, help you with a project, you don't say no, right? So, but anyway, but I do also agree with Richard. I know we had in the past, we would have those exercises of, and what those exercises would do is kind of, put us back. Okay, yeah, we got this, because when I look through the list and it's like, holy, we got this. Yeah, oh, gee, we got this, and this, right? There's a lot of things, a lot of irons in the fire here, and sometimes well, even me as counselor, I don't realize that there's all these things going on behind the scenes, right? So, but anyway, thank you.
Okay. So, Councillor Sonia, you want to wait? I see you've got it's not on the motion. Okay. If there's no other questions on the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, carried. So, Councillor Sonia, you had a question on something else.
Thank you. Alain, you did a good job putting all this together. There's a lot of stuff there. My question is, it's under the title Current Needs. And it's a small paragraph, I'll read it out. It says, the number of grants application has exploded with many different types of grants available to municipalities, to the point that small municipality does not have resources to effectively apply for all these funds respectively. Can you explain that paragraph?
I can. What I mean by making that statement is that there are a lot more grant application requests coming from government. So this is based on an increased demand to do something. So whether it's housing or whether it's wastewater or whatever it is, there's all sorts of policy that's coming from federal and provincial government at a pace much faster than it's ever happened before. So what governments have a tendency to do is identify a problem and set up a funding model to help address that problem. So this is unfortunate for municipalities because typically what happens is here's a problem, here's the money, solve the problem. And so if there's more problems, there's more funding. And if there's more funding, there's more applications. And so for us, it becomes more important to have a focused approach to these grants because we can't go after them all. It used to be you'd have like 5 or 6 a year. Now it might be 2 or 3 it might be 2 or 3 a month. It might be 4 or 5 a month. It depends on the situation. So it really means that we don't have a resource currently, and some municipalities do, but we don't. We don't have a specific grant writer. Okay. And it would be premature to hire that person because if you don't know what you're doing, don't hire somebody to try to do it because you have to know what you're doing first. And that's kind of what we're trying to do here. So, we're prioritizing, we're going after the things that need that we can spend the time to do it right rather than spread ourselves too thin and not be successful on too many grant applications. I hope that explains it more.
It does. Thank you.
Okay, now we have two more motions. What is the wish of council? We have to approve the November 2023 version of the capital master plan. And we have another one is capital prioritizing policy. So there was three motions. No, I guess I wanted to, he was
Yeah,
first.
I have no
right?
problem approving the other two motions, and we can still have a workshop at a
That's right.
later date.
It's also true.
So Kathy, you may.
I'll take a motion, sure.
So move.
So second. The second one.
So it's
Yeah.
moved and seconded, is
Yeah.
that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just for clarity for the clerk, who isn't, well,
Who is in here?
yeah, okay, is, or the person taking the notes, is the motion both of them together? Because you can make them all one.
All at once.
Okay.
Please.
So we've got two motions there, but it's one motion with
Yeah.
two.
The last two.
So it's moved and seconded. And Richard, you're still on there, but you're done. Any questions or comments on that motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried.
Thank you for your patience.
The next one is the executive meetings for November and December. Obviously, we're not going to have the executive in November. We're here late enough that we're not going to have another meeting prior to the end of November. And December falls within the holidays, and usually we recess that one as well. We don't hold that one, but we need a motion to have both so that we don't have either one. Moved by Councillor Dickton, seconded by Deputy Warden. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. Correspondent? January 2nd, Thursday of December, sorry, Yeah, we're not December yet, yeah. Yes? Oh, wait a minute, there you go.
Thank you. Could that possibly be a hybrid meeting as far as Zoomed as well? Because I may not be able to be physically here, but I may be able to partake on Zoom.
I think that our bylaw allows for hybrid meetings, so the easy answer to that is yes. We will encourage a hybrid model because of the fishing season.
Okay,
Thank you.
good. Next is, did we vote on the meetings? Yes, we did. Correspondence, your Health Nova Scotia app. I went on there, I downloaded it. There's a lot of information, how good it is. I mean, it'll tell you what's the waiting time at emergency, and I think nobody knows until you get there. But there's some very good information on that you can get. The other one is Argyle Housing Needs Assessment Report from Province. Now, this is not the actual report that's on there.
No.
Huh? Yeah, pardon me? Okay, it was a long report for sure. So what we have here is basically our CAO's view of the
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Mr. Chair, it's just a memo because we don't have a reaction at this time for that report. But I don't think it's a mystery to anyone to understand that it doesn't matter where you are in Nova Scotia, there's a housing issue and it could hit into crisis mode and is in crisis mode for a lot of regions. So it's not if it could happen to us, it's when it could happen to us. There's a perfect storm of challenge here to get into attainable housing, which is the new term. It's not affordable, it's attainable. Affordable has a negative connotation, like you're not making enough money to afford a house. That's not our situation right now. Our situation is it's unlikely at this point that you'll attain housing, even as someone who has, you know, a middle class or higher income. The cost to be in a home right now is astronomical. So I think it's incumbent upon the province and federal government, like I said before, we have a problem. Here's the money to solve it. Solve it. So I think municipalities, once again, are being tapped on the shoulder to try to find community-based solutions for this. Now, I'm very confident that this organization can do that, but we need a plan. We need a plan of action. I would propose to you that that in the leadership group we'll be discussing this. I don't have an answer. I will say that at an earlier meeting, the provincial government decided to take away expenses and give us additional funding to the tune of $183,000 that will apply April 1st of next year. So those are monies that we don't have to, we're either going to get more of or not have to spend. So that's good news for us, and if we want to pass that on to the resident, well, it's good news to the resident. I would suggest that in that discussion, we talked about the Mariner Center and how if we don't set money aside to pay for the debt, then we'll be increasing the tax rate. But if we're able to do that with the savings, then maybe we don't have to increase the tax rate in the same way that we thought. So in planning for that, and perhaps we have something to work with there. I would also suggest that there is an investment required here for housing. If we're going to be serious about this, it's not just about making sure that people develop housing in our area. It's about having somebody designated specifically to go after it. We don't have that resource right now. So I don't have an answer for you today because we have to discuss it as a leadership group. But I've already kind of raised the alarm that this cannot be done with the existing group. So if we intend on doing it, if that is the intention of council, I just want you to know that it is very likely that we will require resources in order to do that. And what those resources look like is consultants and perhaps not a full-time staff person, but a part-time staff person at the very least to manage this file. It cannot be done with the existing workloads of the others. We have to also recognize that there's other things going on, like Congrès Mondial and other things going on in the community. So we cannot, in good conscience, tack this onto the corner of someone's desk. And actually, the province considers this the number one issue. And if they do, then that means there's funding that's going to come down the pipe to help people to have solutions. So it's not necessarily that you're going to have to pay for it as representatives of taxpayer. It's that you may have to approve a course of action that could actually be funded by the province. We don't know that yet. So the memo was just simply to say, okay, we recognize that there is a problem. It may not be exactly the same problem as in the report. Maybe there's less need, maybe there's more, but we need to tackle this. And so we need to be able to do that effectively. So at a future meeting, we will bring that to your attention, but I really need to discuss it with the leadership group first. Does that make sense?
I have Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. And I actually went over the whole report and, the attainable housing, and that is a problem now right across the country. And it's not specific, to one area or one province or whatever. And I think the big thing, that we as municipalities are going to need, or cities or whatever, is funding to come along. It's as simple as that. Because, you said, our CAO had said earlier, as far as the government, sometimes they'll say, well, here's a problem, go solve it, and here's a problem, take some money and go solve it. But a lot of times what they say, well, here's a problem, and that go solve it. But we can't solve this on our own. There's no possible way. Like, it's a big problem, and it's going to take a lot of dollars to correct this problem, or to even make a dent into it. For what, when you're looking at 2023 as opposed to 2030, the way things are going, And it's that much harder out there right now to get people to get into some of these housing projects because of the interest rate and all that going up, and it's costly. So there's going to have to be money to come along with it. It's not something that the municipality of
It's a
Argyle
complicated issue.
can
Very
solve on its
complicated
own.
issue.
Exactly. Thank you.
Councillor Surratt.
I was speaking to a contractor probably a month ago, and it related to something we had spoken at council here probably 6, 7, 8 years ago. We had approached a contractor about maybe doing some housing, whether it be on J.E. Hatfield or whatever. But for them to go, this guy was telling me the same idea as the guy that wanted to maybe person contract build some housing here. He said, you know what, to get some money from the government at that time was they wanted a couple of low rental in that unit, plus maybe if it was a 6 unit, have at least 2 low rental. But this guy was telling me the other day, he said, you know what, with that low rental and that, it's just not feasible. It's just not feasible for me to build this and to make a profit at it, to manage it and that. So I guess to your point, CAO, you're so right. And to Glenn, there has to be money coming down the pike to help. But there are solutions. I'm sure if, just have somebody that's into, you hire somebody to look at that. I think that's a great point, but there are certainly challenges out there, for sure.
We thank you for saying that, and Mr. Chair. So, we have limitations as to what we can do, and when I say, here's a problem, go solve it. The province is part of the solution as well. I don't want to say that they're not, and they have resources, but they can't necessarily know the community the way that we do. So the problem is complex. It's not a developer's problem. It's not Airbnb problem. It's not the interest rate problem. It's not inflation problem. It's not any. It's all of those. It's not any of those. It's all of them. So, and then the escalating costs and the demand for living. It's a very complex issue. So we just need to find an Argyle way of addressing this, because we have people in desperate need for housing. And we have seniors that are in homes that are larger than they desire, that require something safer and better. And there's a long list. And then we have people coming in from everywhere. Where are they going to stay, right? So there's a lot of things to consider. And we just know that we don't have the expertise internally to do this well. So it's not just the legs to do it, it's the knowledge. So we need somebody to help us with understanding what the paces might be. And somebody needs to navigate this. Like it's like football. Like you have to dodge and tackle. Like you have to go and get everything that you can in order to understand where the next move might be. And we don't have that resource today.
Okay. Councillor Saulnier.
Well, thank you. Alain, it's almost like 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards. And since I've been on council here, which is a short time, you've hired an assistant, and because the workload was getting more than you could handle, and I understand that. If you had to face this housing crisis and had to hire the people you say you must hire, how much more of a workload does it put on your staff? Is it? Do you figure it would be significant?
It's a good question. So to answer the first part, we changed the way that the Office of the CAO works, so that now we have a deputy CAO and an executive assistant, as opposed to having 2 in 1 position. So we did add, in that sense, we added more resources. And so what will happen in the housing issue is it takes a community. So while we may have to hire additional staff person, it will absolutely impact the staff workload of everyone else associated with that. Because if you can think about what you would have to do in order to allow housing to happen, well, a lot of it is infrastructure, and that's operations. That's Kyle. It might be land use. That's Renee. It might be financial. That's Marcia. And the list goes on. It may be recreation facilities required because of the collection. That's Natalie. And I'm just mentioning the department heads. It doesn't mean, I'm not to suggest that the others that work for them aren't going to be busy as well. So this is it. We have to be very mindful about how we approach this. And we understand we're smaller. We don't have a big problem like HRM, but we're also small. So, it may be a smaller problem, but we are also small. It will impact, time on community development, which Scott takes very seriously. It will impact Chantal's time in terms of meetings and coordination, and myself. So it will impact every department. That's why it cannot be done by any department. It has to be resourced appropriately. And I'm not going to suggest that, I don't want to, it's like a Colliers that could help us along. So I don't want to say that it is Colliers, but a Colliers is an organization that we're rather familiar with on the Mariner Center expansion. They're in the business of housing. That's what they do. So there are others. So I mentioned them not to say that we would hire them, but that it would be that type of firm that would have to help us along in determining what we need to do. And then once we know what we need to do, then we would have to resource that. So this hits everyone.
I figured. Thank you.
Okay. The next is Nova Scotia 2030 Clean Power Plan. Letter from the Honorable Tim Houston. There's no questions on that one. We'll move on. Financial request. We have Radio CFA financial request. There's an attachment. They're needing some work done to their building. And they've applied through ourselves and through the Clare municipality as well. Clare has responded to the request. The Clare Council has approved funding for 50% of the project with a cap of $2,000. It says here that the materials would be ranging from $900 to $1,400, excluding labor costs. And when I look at the option here, it says that the council could approve paying a certain percentage of this project. Oh, no, it's the motion. 50% of the material cost to a maximum of $1,500. But according to the material cost, it's only $900 to, unless there's going to be extra material. Is that, would we only pay half? I'm gonna go to Deputy CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Yes, it's, we received a few different quotes. That's why there's it ranges from 900 to 1,400. And she did mention in the email that there may be missing a little bit of more material that might not be quoted. And when they remove the old shingles, they may need even a little more
Repairs.
depending what they see. So there could be more than just that particular quote that we have there. So there might be a little more funding needed. Yeah.
Okay. No, I just wondered if it was an error saying that we would cover half the project, but it's just materials.
Materials. It's
Okay.
on materials.
I have Councillor Surratt.
Yes, I feel that CFI gives a great opportunity to the residents of Argyle. They bring a lot of positive, and I remember at the Ultramar we used to see what radio station that people's cars were on. By the way, some of you, if you brought your car, we put the radio, we'd listen to the radio, and so we know where to put our advertising dollars. So, kind of sneaky, but that's how we gauged it, though. And you know what? I think there's a valuable thing, and certainly with the regulated motion, I certainly would make a motion that council approves to pay 50% of the material costs for the roofing project, a maximum of $1,500, and that would go to the municipality of Clare, as was listed here.
Do we have a seconder? I'll second it. It's moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. So it brings us to agenda topics for the next meeting or notice of motion by councillor. Seeing none. Question period. No questions came through. And we have an in camera with a couple of items. So a motion to go in camera. Do we need a seconder